I'm Cathy Hobbs, and I'm the owner and developer of Highland Passive House in Highland, New York. I set out to build a warehouse for my company, and I needed it to be a certain size, and I needed it to have two components, an office and a warehouse. And I was just going to build a warehouse. And then I met Michael Ingui, the architect who specializes in passive construction, because he was a guest on a show that I was hosting at the time. And I said, I'm looking to build a warehouse. I said, what do you think of passive? And he said, well, I mostly do homes, but I guess you could do that. So he called one of his contacts, and as it turns out, that person had a building for sale that was exactly the size that I needed, but it hadn't been built. It was prefabricated passive panels sitting in hangars in Maine. And I said, that's my building. I'm an interior designer, but I own a company that specializes in real estate staging and styling. So what we're going to be storing here are textiles, furniture, things that you don't want to get musty and smelly. So being in a clean environment is really important to me. Clean air, temperature control, those are the types of things that resiliency that we're able to achieve because this building is passive, net zero, and carbon neutral. And that's not normally what you find in an industrial warehouse setting. When I started the process of trying to build, I came across NYSERDA, and there was one specific program that I could qualify for, and that was new construction for passive and net zero buildings. So I decided to find out everything I could find out about how the grant worked. I was on information sessions to the point where they started to say, Cathy has another question, because they knew me because I was on every single session. And then the grant application, I think when it was all said and done, it was almost 100 pages. And we got a grant that, as a result of the help that we received from NYSERDA, we would have never been able to build this building. If it wasn't for the help of NYSERDA, the support of NYSERDA, we wouldn't be able to do what we're doing, which will not only help the community, but we hope will serve as a model for other buildings to come, that it will be able to be replicated and studied, and that people will be able to use this in order to build other buildings that are similar to this one.
One of the really nice things about doing work, especially passive house work in high performance buildings in New York, is NYSERDA. NYSERDA has been wonderful on this project. Not only do they provide funding, the team is incredibly supportive, very knowledgeable. This isn't just going to benefit the Highland Passive House project. It's going to benefit people who want to do projects just like it. It's nice not being first. It's nice seeing what's been done and learning from that. That's one piece of it. The other piece of it, it starts to show companies, overhead garage door companies, window companies, panelized wall companies. It starts to show them that there is a market here, that you do need to provide supplies and elements that you can use in the New York tri-state area that will work for high performance buildings, that these buildings are being built. They know for lots of reasons. One, that NYSERDA helps to fund these buildings so they happen. But two, as part of this process, we're sharing what we've done, just like in this video, where we're showing what we've done, why we've done it, how we've done it, and what we've used. So you've got NYSERDA helping to promote this. You've got NYSERDA helping us to share how we did this. You've got NYSERDA helping to show what products that we've used so that more companies will come into it who may have questions, is there really a market for it? So what happens is the market catches up. The market knows it's coming. So the market makes more product, which means we have a more competitive market. So not only do I get people excited about it, show people how to do it, show people how it's going, but I get an entire market excited about this, and that's what brings down cost. That's what makes more people do it. You're not first, You're not figuring it out the first time because someone else is helping you with that. And now you really can get the products you need. It's been really, really helpful. And again, I feel quite lucky to be in New York and feel lucky to be working with NYSERDA.
So we're standing in front of the Highland Passive House. It's Cathy Hobbs multi-use facility. It's about 12,000 square feet. You'll see we have two buildings here, one of which is a warehouse, the other is an office. One of the biggest things you'll see as you drive into the site is these 10-foot foundation walls here. You'll notice they have a bunch of little dots in them. This is actually an ICF, so it's a prefabricated form. We already have insulation impregnated in the concrete right off the bat during the pour, instead of pouring and then putting insulation on after the fact.
There's foam on the other side that creates the form. Then on this side, it's almost a traditional wood form. So when you pull that off, you get this texture and this kind of look, which is what we were really looking for with it.
So you'll see we have a little bit of plastic hanging over the edge. That's actually wrapped underneath the slab and creates a continuous air barrier to keep the space as tight as possible. Right on top of that are her structurally insulated panels, or what we call SIPs. But the whole building is planned out in advance and the panels come, and it's essentially just a big adult Lego set. The assembly took about, for the office and the warehouse, was about 3 weeks to put the whole thing together, which is a miraculously quick timeline. Logistically, it's a little bit more difficult. Instead of getting stacks of lumber, you get giant panels, and that's something that you need to figure out in advance. But other than that, to build a building with this panelized system is pretty revolutionary. So actually we have like two foundation types here. We have a standard wall foundation, and then over in the office we have slab on grade. The cool part is we got all this prefabricated and pre-made and pre-cut, so that we essentially put them together just like the SIPs, like Lego pieces, and it created a pour stop for us to pour our slab into, which helped greatly with not needing to set up forms and also include the insulation all at the same time. So it's kind of like an ICF for slab on grade.
But this is actually a shallow footing foundation, so this is the top of the footing. It's only a few inches below grade at the end of the day. And then another kind of interesting thing is that the structure of the wall is back here. Once we go inside, you'll be able to see that kind of 2x4, and that's what's holding the wall up. But this entire bit here is insulation that's being supported by the insulation of the foundation. So when you kind of go back to the drawing in the section, you sort of take your finger around it. There's kind of a continuous insulative barrier around the entire building.
This is her loading dock. I think the most important part of this loading dock is the size of this garage door here, and the fact that it's got to be part of the passive perimeter. So we're going to be using something air sealed, airtight, well insulated, not your typical garage door in this space.
It's kind of basically a roll-up door, and the way conceptually those panels just kind of lock in together as they roll down and become vertical. So it's like conceptually the same thing as your typical garage door, just built in a kind of different way. All these panels were delivered on site, but this garage door wasn't a part of the original design of the building. So these panels, this was just a closed panel. This wasn't here, and Baxter had to create this opening, which I guess comes down to basic framing at the end of the day, but we had to find where that goes and modify the panels on site to make that work. Because where we're standing now is a loading dock, so Cathy, the client, will take deliveries from full-size 18-wheelers. And so Qatar, who was our site engineer with Pretorius and Conrad, had to kind of finagle how this building would sit on this site, and that would allow an 18-wheeler to come in, back up, unload, back out, and get out of here. So it's really, in a lot of ways, this building really had to kind of be right where it is in order to make it work. When we get around to it, you'll see Cathy's office is deliberately on the southwest corner of the building. All the employees of this building will be in that office day to day, right? This is really kind of storage, so it's less of a priority for sunlight and so forth.
In addition, she has a south-facing solar array on the warehouse.
The building should be, on a good day, completely powered by electric. And it's a completely electric building. There's no gas or anything in it.
Yeah, no natural gas, and then we're actually installing 3 Tesla batteries to store excess and power the panels in the warehouse for backup in the event of a power outage. We have a bunch of concrete blocks around. We can't fasten to the floor. We're required to brace both sides of these panels before the trusses show up. So in order to accommodate her concrete floor and bracing the safety of construction, we've brought in these, what they call mafia blocks, which are just precast blocks to hold the walls up in the meantime until the trusses show up and everything gets fastened together.
And then the other thing is we're standing on the finished floor. This is what the final finish of this warehouse and of the office when we go in there. So, you know, you have to think about it in those terms when you're standing here. And so Baxter's been very careful with the mafia blocks to make sure that you're not damaging what will ultimately be the final look of the building. The big question was, we have trusses. We need 10 inches of insulation. Do we do that inboard, you know, in maybe a more traditional way with like a blown-in insulation, or do we do that on the exterior side? And from a performance standpoint, exterior is always better. You just don't allow the heat or the cold in. And so then it became, well, what do? Do we purchase a product and just have it delivered and install it? Or do we create something on site? And I think what we came to is Baxter will be, once the trussers are in place, they will be sheathed in kind of a typical way with plywood. And then Baxter is going to build basically a SIP panel on top of that, which will be a sandwich of plywood, insulation, and plywood again. And then the roof structure goes on top of that.
We had to make a pass-through door from the warehouse to the office. Obviously, you don't want to walk outside and get to the warehouse. But if you look at the cross-section, you can actually see the sheer depth of each one of these walls together next to each other, which obviously each cavity is filled with insulation. This is essentially showing you how much insulation there is. And if you've ever seen a standard home, 2x4 framed, it's not even remotely close to this.
So it's two different systems as well. So the ERV in the warehouse is a company called VentaCity. So obviously it's a massive volume and we needed a massive amount of air circulation. So they are equipped to handle buildings of this size. They do a lot of multifamilies and larger buildings. And then when we get into the office, where it's a smaller unit, smaller tubing, everything, just to handle the office by itself.
Mm-hmm. This is Cathy's office. Starting on this side, she's got a kitchen set up. And directly in the middle, we have bathrooms and you know, a makeup area for, you know, her shows, getting herself ready. And then we're all standing in what is a open office area where you know, employees can work. It's going to be more fluid than a traditional office. No cubicles. There'll be a couple of couches. You know, we have a couple of floor boxes set that you can't see right now. That'll help keep everyone powered up. And then as we make our way around the side, we get to the back of house, Cathy's office, where she keeps her samples, her stuff, and then a conference room where she'll be taking meetings as well.
The way this kitchen is laid out is there's a back wall with refrigerators, sink, pantry. The island, which is in the center, right where this kind of block would be, has the cooktop. That cooktop's an induction cooktop, but there's no chimney hood like you would normally see. And the reason why is because this kitchen's being set up to where if she chooses, Cathy could film a cooking show or have kind of presentations and so forth. So that hood would be in the way. So Fisher and Paykel stepped in, offered a downdraft hood that comes out of the island. The problem with that hood, or the challenge with that hood, is that we had to get that duct down the island, under the slab, back up the back wall and out of the building, right? So again, when you come to coordination, we had to define where that slab would stop, where that duct was and how it comes up, and then cover that access panel at the end.
With the slab on grade, you're not able to really make decisions after the fact. You have to make them prior to building. It was a big coordination on our end, Cathy's end as well, with the vendors to make sure that everything was put in the right spot. Because once it's in it can't move. Yeah, you'll notice that there is a lot of windows here. There's a lot of windows for a passive house, and you know, trying to avoid penetrations as much as possible. We've got a lot of windows in here, but it should yield a pretty tight envelope here, even with all the natural light.
This is the main entry door. So this is kind of a regular swing door. The conference room wall sort of is right here. But then on this side, this is a massive slider door. right? So this door could be open during events or whatever, so you can kind of come in and out in kind of a more free-flowing way. So what's nice about this is that in the wintertime, when all of those trees are dormant, we've got a low sun, we'll still be able to get some good light into here. Right now we're in the end of September, so the building's completely framed out. All the exterior shell is done. And where we just finished was a design meeting with Cathy and her builder where we went through the framing layout. But what we like to do is kind of mark this all out on the floor and just kind of walk through the space and make sure that we like what we see. One thing that we changed, and this is why we do things like a framing layout, is in this space in front of me here will be kind of a storage area. And at one time we had it kind of against the wall and not an element. And today we decided to pull it off the wall and kind of raise it all the way to the high ceiling and kind of make it a design element. But from here, the builder's getting ready to do all of his exterior air sealing, all of his exterior waterproofing, and start to tie in all these windows and make the building watertight. But it's a 12,000 square foot warehouse, and you don't realize how big 12,000 square feet is until you see it in person. And so on drawings, as we're going through it, it's easy to kind of lose track of just the scale of the building. But seeing it in person is pretty amazing. As we really strive to have a columnless space. So we had to have these trusses specifically designed for the space. They span 67 feet, free span. So Cathy has completely uninterrupted space for her business and also for the storage on this side as well. But the blower door test threshold for this is 0.6 ACH, so air changes per hour. And you could think of that as just how the volume of the air changes 0.6 times every hour. So basically every 2 hours you have completely new air in the building. That is phenomenally better than code, although the code's getting tighter and tighter every year. But that's 2 or 3 times better than code minimum. And we're confident that we're going to get there. We're actually just before the step where we do a test, kind of an intermediate blower door test, and make sure that we're on track for that. I will say, just from our research and from just kind of being involved in the industry, the larger the building, the actually easier it is to air seal it. So it'll be interesting to see what this building does where it's at now. Like I was saying, we're about to get to the point where they'll do an intermediate blower door test. So that's when Baxter, the contractor, will perform their own blower door test to kind of test themselves. Make sure that the slab is tight, make sure the walls are tight, and the roof, kind of the big giant pieces. We like to do that now so that if you have issues with wall or roof connections, it's wide open for you and you can deal with that. And then it also kind of sets your threshold. Let's say we get to 0.7 or 0.6 even on your first one, you know what you're trying to achieve on the next one.
Financing a project like this isn't easy. It took me 3 years and 2 banks to get to this point. And one grant helped to make all the difference. It became very attractive to a bank to be able to take on this project because I came with a grant in place, and honestly, I had someone else who already believed in the project. For the bank that ultimately moved forward with this, I had them at hello. But what's wonderful are all the initiatives, both locally, statewide, and nationally, that are here to help developers like me, small business owners like me, be able to do what I'm doing, which is building a building that's passive, net zero, and carbon neutral. So Highland is a location that I absolutely fell in love with. It's about 90 minutes north of New York City, and it's just a stone's throw from New Paltz. But for most of its history, it's been agricultural. We're actually surrounded on 3 sides by orchards, and it's a hub really for the Hudson Valley. What we're able to do by locating here is bring jobs to the area. We're going to be bringing a number of jobs, warehouse jobs, logistics jobs, design jobs, creative jobs, admin jobs. And we're even going to be able to expand our design services into the Hudson Valley through adding vacation rental design, short-term rental design, rentals of our furniture. And so that is even going to help keep the dollars locally. We had the absolute pleasure of being welcomed here in Highland. When we went before the planning board, it was a unanimous decision for us to be able to build here. So the community impact is going to be felt not only now, but for really decades to come. Highland Passive House is going to serve as a beacon for all of those who are looking to build from scratch. And instead of maybe going down this path, we'll look at the path that we set forth at Highland Passive House. One of sustainability, one of environmental friendly, one of passive. And they'll say, why not? Why not me? Why not build in a similar way? That's what I hope that will be my legacy of what I've done here.